Good afternoon, everyone. I am Kathy Neifeld. I'm one of the partners at Agency One, and I am thrilled to be bringing you part four of a five-part webinar series that is being shared with us by our friends from John Hancock. It's called B.O.S.S, B-O-S-S, and that stands for Business Owner Solution Systems. I am being joined today by Wayne Baldwin, who is our regional vice president from John Hancock that handles everything for Agency One related to John Hancock business. And also Mark Berry, who is our featured speaker. Mark has been with us on three prior occasions explaining the BOSS or Business Owner Solution Systems. And today we are going to be focusing on solutions for the heirs of business owners. So planning for families within the business owner context. Mark is the variable life president at John Hancock, responsible for working with internal and external sales organizations to facilitate the development and optimization of VUL product placement and growth of sales across John Hancock's customer base. That's the first paragraph of his bio. And when I said to Mark, why are we focusing on VUL when you seem to be the boss of B.O.S.S? And no pun intended. And he laughed and he said that he's got, frankly, the most experience with the B.O.S.S system. And his role at John Hancock is far more than just focusing on variable life products and placements, although variable products do have a place within the B.O.S.S system. Mark as I said, has spoken on our previous three webinars, and he's also going to talk. He's going to be the featured speaker on the fifth one. And he knows this system inside and out, can grow the business owner opportunities for our advisors. And without further ado, I am going to turn this over to Mark. So how this webinar is going to proceed, it's going to be about 20 to 25 minutes. Please submit your questions in the Q&A. We will address them at the end, I promise you. So without further ado, I'm thrilled to say that Mark is back with us, and I'm excited to hear this presentation. So Mark, take it away.
So Kathy, just sanity check. We see the nice blue screen.
That's correct.
Very good. Well, I've said this before, but it does mean a lot to us, Kathy, that you bring us on to your meeting too. And Wayne and I both really appreciate this opportunity. So for those that have joined us before, you recall what this is. It's basically this is an extension of, I just called it a napkin presentation that I would present to business owners over the years to talk to them about all the different ways that we could help them. And that's really where we'll start here again, to kind of go back and review what this is. So if you should have a blank piece of paper in front of you, a blank screen, and I would simply draw a circle and I would put the boss, the business owner, right there in the middle. And as you recall, the reason I would do this is that their universe is all encompassing. I mean, we want to embrace everything that's going on in their lives. And there are four main groups of people that they interact with or that mean a lot to them. And so the first one, of course, when you talk about business owner solution system, of course, is the first one is the employees that were always top of mind. We've talked about them. Over to the right, we put their business partners, very important people there too, if they have partners. The foundation of their planning is their family. And that's what we talked about the last time, is really that group of people. And what we're going to focus on today are the heirs. And there's a lot of conversation about passing on a business, what's going to happen to pass things on with a business owner. So a lot to unpack here. But again, the idea is a napkin presentation. This isn't really to teach you a lot here. It's really more about a way to talk about what you already know. The first thing about heirs, of course, is estate planning, and that goes without saying. And I think the common misconception out there with many people, and even many of us sometimes we have to catch ourselves, right? Is we think estate planning is just estate tax planning. And and nothing could be farther from the truth. Matter of fact, estate planning, all of us are going to have an estate one day, whether it's planned or unplanned. So what we're really talking about with a business owner is planning for this event, right? Planning for the estate. But I'll start with this: is that estate planning and business succession planning are pretty much for a business owner one and the same. So you might hear these terms used interchangeably when you talk to them about business succession planning and estate planning. I mean, there's other structures around business succession planning if they're going to pass it on while they're still around. But these two go together very strongly for a business owner. And the reason they're important is that, first of all, and this is a big one, is that by doing the planning, you can get that value determined of the business and also potentially secure a buyer for the business. That's a big one. The second one is to provide for the heirs. That's why we do it in the first place. Maybe it's to transfer assets to the next generation. Perhaps that's a structure, a strategy they would like to do. Provide the liquidity needed for obviously the estate and other taxes if there are estate taxes, and then equalize the inheritances. And that's something we're going to talk about as well. It's all of these and more. And so very, very important side of this for the business owner. So we'll start with the estate tax. And of course, if there is an estate tax issue, we want to solve that. But as many of you know, the estate tax exemption over the years has continued to climb. So this goes back to 2011. The reason I don't show 2010 is that there was an unlimited exemption that year. That was a now famous or infamous year, depending on who you talk to. But beginning in 2011, as you can see, the estate tax exemption has steadily risen. And over the years, it's become quite large, as some people would say. And as all of you probably know, recently, here in 2025, the One Big Beautiful Bill was passed, and it locked in the estate tax exemption at 15 million per person with a cost of living adjustment. So that's really where we are right now. We're at 15 million. And when you look at a chart like this, it's probably no surprise then that the taxable estates has gone down slightly, because if you have a higher exemption, then that means the number of taxable estates could go down. But it's interesting that I think business owners are very efficient at keeping up with the estate tax exemption, because as you can see, the taxable estates has actually creeped up just a little bit as well. But the point here is that it was two things that are important. One is, as you all know, it depends on the administration and the Congress and Senate and whoever's in there on what's going to happen in the future with the estate tax exemption. It seems to be something that is always talked about, and there's always a threat that it's going to change either direction. That's the first one. But the second one, as you can see here too, there still are taxable estates out there, but I don't want to say they're few and far between, but there's not a lot of them. So what I would then kind of the thought process is, if we're with a business owner that clearly doesn't have an estate tax issue, there's so much more to talk about. But again, estate tax, if there is one, definitely want to solve that one. But I think for the business owner, the small business owner, one of the big things when it comes to estate planning is this idea that they're going to just sell the business. And many of them have that in mind, which is important, right? That's a good strategy. So this will highlight a few of the things that are the importance of planning, some statistics that we found out there over the years. And the first one is interesting, that nearly two-thirds of business owners do not have a documented and communicated succession plan. And those two words are important. Documented, yes, but communicated as well. It's important that they've communicated this to the heirs, to the people that will be dealing with this at some point. But I think that's a really a staggering number if you think about it, that there's very few of them, frankly, only about a third that have done this planning. So for all of us on this call, I think it opens up this opportunity for us, and maybe even a sense of urgency that, hey, this is probably something that needs to be talked about. And I'm not saying it's all because they think if they don't have an estate tax that they don't need to do this, but business owners are like anybody else. They're really busy and they're just doing their thing. This is where we can really help them. by sitting them down and really forcing them in some cases to have this conversation and talk about this, this becomes important. So that's the first thing I think that's interesting is that not many of them have done this planning, and yet look at this, and I think this is the twist on it, that almost 80% of them say that their business is their most important asset and protecting it is their top long-term goal. So you take those two statistics just together and you see that there is an opportunity and frankly an appetite to get a lot of this planning done. The other interesting statistic, and we've heard all about the baby boomers, I'm one of them as well. I made the very edge of it. The baby boomers they're moving on, right? And the fact that over 50% of U.S. businesses are still owned by baby boomers, it kind of shows you the sense of urgency of in the very near future, there's going to be a lot of transitioning going on there. But the last one I think is sobering, and that is that only about 30% of small businesses successfully sell. Now, I don't know the definition of successfully sell. I think to me it would be at a price or close to a price that I expected in a certain amount of time that I would expect. And so what you're seeing out there is that all of these statistics put together, the fact that very little planning has been done and yet they want to do it, but when it gets to the end, only about 30% of businesses successfully sell. It really does set the stage, I think, for how important it is to talk to business owners about just this phase right here. And so the other piece I'll bring up then is this idea of estate equalization. And if you think about how this works, and I'll give you an example of a farm, right? If there's a farmer they've got kids, one of the kids typically would stay behind and work the farm. And let's say the other three kids moved away. They wanted to become attorneys and whatever else, right? So at this time of an estate, what happens is this idea that, hey, if they give the farm to the one child that stayed behind to work the farm and wants to keep the farm, how do they then appease the other three children? Because if they just say give it to all four of them, three out of four are going to vote to sell it, right? The land is probably worth more than the farm at this point. And so it creates such a mess. And I want to show you a chart. This is something that we found, and it's a really interesting chart. If you look at the idea of these are the way that wealth is kind of structured. And it's really maybe hard to see on your screen, but what I want you to focus on is the dark blue section. So if you look over to the left, it shows here's the net worth of someone. It starts at $10,000, always all goes all the way to $1 billion. And if you look, the dark blue section is basically the business interest of each of these people. And it's no surprise that business owners do have a great chance at creating some incredible wealth. And that's what this is showing is that the more someone's worth, the more chance that a business is the reason for it. And also the business becomes a bigger and bigger part of their estate. Now, I think it's interesting, even at 10 million, if you look at that, which a 10 million net worth, there is no estate tax. So they're probably not even thinking about estate tax. And yet, even at 10 million, that's roughly 30% of the estate right there. And so this idea of estate equalization is also important. And I would argue that almost every business owner may have a need to have that discussion. How am I going to equalize the estate? Obviously, life insurance, of course, is a beautiful solution there because you can take, say, they've got a $3 million business they're going to pass on to one of the children. A nice survivorship policy could be structured then to equalize the estate with all the other heirs, however that works, right? So that's an important piece as well for the estate. The other fun thing here with heirs, and this one I think is, and I'll admit, as a planner, I learned actually a little too late in my career about this one. This idea of charitable giving. And the reason I say this is I was remiss in asking about charitable giving. What we're looking for is someone that is giving to charity already, right? So there's already a charitable gift going somewhere. Many small businesses, especially if they're successful, over the years have finally found a charity that means something to them. And there are significant amounts of money going to charities on their behalf. What's interesting about this for them, they may not know this, we all know this, of course, is how you can potentially use life insurance to magnify that charitable giving. So again, we're looking for existing charitable giving, and we can talk to them about a couple of things: charitable remainder trust, charitable lead trust. These sound fancy, and these are one of many ways to structure some things like this. But some of you have done these cases before, so I always like to bring them up, is that it starts with the charitable gift, and then you can structure it however they see fit. So just in a very basic sense, and again, this isn't teaching you anything, but just to go through the flow of how this really works. You've got the donor and you've got the charity. And so what happens is the donor is gifting something to the charity, but what they get in return for that is not only the fact that they're giving to something that they think is important, but they do get a nice charitable income tax deduction, right? So that's how it works between the two. What we then talk about then, the new part of this is saying to the charity, take the gift and turn it into a premium. And then, excuse me, that premium goes into a life insurance policy, and then the charity gets the proceeds. And so it may mean they put off a little bit of the thrill of the gift for this, but as many of you know, these can be really significant amounts that they can create for this. And then again, the structure on how you do it, whether it's lead trust, remainder trust, however you want to do it, certainly that would be up to the donors and how they want to play that. So, but this just gives us a nice picture of how that works. And so, really that's the idea, is it when you're talking to them, it's this idea that there's estate planning that needs to be done, and don't forget the charitable giving and the things that could do. So if you've tuned in with me before, this is really the point where I give the three basic questions. And you all have asked these many times, and I keep these very simple on purpose. And I would ask questions this way. I just very conversational. Number one, talk to me about how your business is included in your estate plan. Right? If you ask it that way, what's interesting, it assumes they have an estate plan. You might find that they don't even have one, right? Because the response could be very telling on that one. So, very simple words there. The second one is, so they tell you that, so talk to me then about equalizing the estate, with the business, and you gives you a chance to maybe explain at a high level what that means. And you'll find that there's some very interesting answers there as well. And then if I could help you maximize your charitable giving, would that be something of interest? So, again, the idea is just have this conversation, see what they have to say. And you don't have to have all the answers right there. And especially at this level, I would say these are the parts right here where having access to good legal help, someone to review documents. There may be some existing estate planning that they've done. And if you've got someone available to review documents, this is where Wayne Baldwin can really help you, by the way, because we do have a team of attorneys and advanced salespeople that can review things like this. And Wayne, unless it's changed in the last few days, I don't believe we charge for this service. So just, bring us in if we can help you with something like that. But that's really the idea, is again, if you've set in with all four of the groups in all of these presentations, that's the idea, is to look at this business owner holistically and embrace them, right? Give them the chance to say, hey, look, well, I'm not just coming in here to try to sell you something, right? That's really not the point. What I'm trying to do is have a conversation with you about all the planning maybe you already have done, and maybe some planning you need to think about. And then we become the conduit for those solutions. And so with that, Kathy, I can turn it back over if there's any questions or outbursts on that, and
Yeah.
we can see
So,
what we got out there.
couple things. So, Mark, let's go back to the charity opportunity, the charitable opportunity that you were discussing. So, can you talk a little bit about how charitable giving can also reduce the potential tax liability on the sale of a company through using a donor advised fund? Like maybe explain a little bit about how that works.
I wish I was an expert on that, Kathy. I'm not. So that's certainly something we could bring in with our advanced planning team to talk about that. But I would say anytime you're gifting to charity, obviously what you're doing, of course, is taking assets out of the estate and getting that nice deduction. But Wayne is on the call. Wayne, I don't know if you had anything to say on that. I certainly would like to
No,
turn it over to you
I
if you want
wouldn't
to
be
add to
able
that.
to. It would be one of our five attorneys or advanced marketing support people that are
Yeah.
available. But we can get back to you on that, Kathy.
All right. But here's what we know, right? Through if we're going to go the charity route, there should be further uh tax advantages that the company is going to be able to take advantage of through utilizing that sort of planning,
Yeah,
right?
and it could be the company, Kathy, or it could be just the donor themselves, right? They can
Right.
do this on a personal level as well. There are companies that gift to charities as well. It makes sense for them to do that. And so either way is going to work. And I think in the end, you get the same results, which is you've got the gift that's now come out of the estate, whether it be or the value of the business, and then they get the write-off for that. That's the general structure.
Okay. And now let's go back to the beginning. If we're going to be talking about companies and selling companies and planning companies, what is John Hancock's position regarding business valuations? And do you get involved in that? Can you recommend solutions for that? Because everything really starts with the value of the business. And I think oftentimes business owners believe that their business has a value which may be either overinflated or underinflated. And until we actually know what the business is worth, how can we move forward in terms of uh, planning and selling the business for the correct amount?
Well, and I think, Kathy, you point out, first of all, a great point about the now famous or infamous Connolly case, right? This is one of the issues that really came out from it is that they did not do a good business valuation, a good solid business valuation. So we would always encourage that, even during the underwriting process, that's a question that's going to come up. Certainly if you're doing buy-sell agreements and things that require a good business valuation. We as a company have business valuation tools and things you can use to kind of get a first rough stab at it. These would not be, though, what I would call legally binding. I would always encourage a business to go out there and get a good business valuation. But certainly, Wayne, and I'm sure you've passed those on, we
Yeah,
do have a tool at least to give them a first cut, an
yeah,
idea.
that's a good, well said. That's a good starting point. It's on a website that we have that actually is not password protected. It's JH Advanced ED markets.com. And one of the tools in there, amongst other tools, is to be able to do business valuation. So it's a nice starting point based on the facts that you get from the business owner. So it's jhadvancedmarkets.com, not password protected.
Thank you. Um, so, hey, Mark, you've been doing the
Mm.
the boss um, the boss template or framework that you've been talking to. You've been involved with this for how many years?
Oh, well, I guess I came up with it for myself as a planner 20 years ago. So at least the first rough draft of it. I've been with John Hancock for 3 years now. And so we've built it out here at John Hancock for the past 3 years. And at previous companies, I had worked with it as well. I will say, Kathy, to that point, at John Hancock, they've embraced it. They kind of saw an opportunity here to really build this out. And so what you'll find is it's something that we're growing, which may lead to that next presentation if we're doing the fifth and the four-part series, which is our guaranteed issue program, our executive benefits, or what we call employer solutions. uh, we're using the boss template to even tell that story. And it's something that certainly we'd be happy to share with you and your team. But we've created a client approved version of this presentation where you could take this boss presentation and present it to a business owner to give them the idea of what we're trying to do when it comes to guaranteed issue. And I don't know, Wayne, if you had anything to add to that or something.
No, I mean, it is, we're known for, the death benefit products and estate distribution planning and et cetera, et cetera. But we've always been strong in the products and planning on the business insurance. We're just, with Mark's help, is we're growing that market for us and for the brokers, helping them, take it to the street, so to speak. So just I think it's always good to have a track to run on when you're presenting, and that's what this does.
Yeah, and Kathy, to add to that too, we've created now a lot of client approved pieces for all of the boss circle. So if you remember, key person, for example, we have some client approved pieces about key person. So that could perhaps help you and your teams as well with buy sell agreements, executive bonuses, even policy reviews. As you go all around the circle, we've created a suite or a toolkit of all of these client approved pieces that if that's something that can help you, that's something we've made available too. And the last thing I'll mention, of course, is the worksheet that I believe we've shared previously, where we've got it actually says boss on it. It's real pretty colors. It's got the cheat questions at the bottom. And I've gotten a lot of feedback that that's come in really handy at that first meeting with a business owner, just to have the conversation, just to pull it out and gives them a place to draw on and make notes and have that conversation.
So I'm going
But
to put
Mark,
on,
let me ask you a question, Mark. Sorry, Kathy.
it's okay.
I would say presenting it, the whole four parts, in that one page, you'll, as a broker, I'm thinking out loud, the client will begin to hone in on what hasn't been done or what's most important to that client. Would you say that happens
Yeah, so
in
what
these
happens
situations?
is, and we're all, anybody that's a salesperson, you get some people got buying signals, or you can tell when they're disturbed about something, or certainly if they start asking questions. If you get that interaction, you can tell as you go around here and you're talking to a business owner, if you're truly having this conversation and you've got them to relax a little bit, you can tell which ones are important to them. But I've done this before too. I've kind of looked up, especially if I felt like two or three were important. Instead of telling them what I thought was important first for them, I would ask them, "Hey, which of these do you feel like is probably the one you'd want to talk about first and really pursue?" And
Right.
that way you don't overwhelm them, because you might have someone that needs three or four solutions, but and we're going to get to all of them, but let's start where they want to start, right? And that's what I would usually do, is let them kind of lead that discussion on which one it bothers them the most first.
Well, and that really dovetails very nicely into what I was going to ask you originally, which was you've been in this space for uh, a few decades now
Hmm.
and have been with Hancock for a significant period of time. For the advisors that are on the phone, what do you think separates the advisors that you're working with that really shine in the business owner space from those that just dabble in it? What makes them different and why are they so successful? If you
Yep.
could share maybe two or three key stories or key practices that they implement that perhaps the folks on the phone could think about and go, wow, that's really interesting. I never thought about approaching it from another angle.
No, that's a great question. It's the first time someone's asked me the question that way, Kathy. So kudos to you. Great question. The first thing I would say is the ones that are successful have the ability to listen. And I know this sounds weird, right? But what's really critical here is to not go in with a preconceived notion that you know the solution they need. You might be surprised if you can just go through it and take your time and listen. That's the first one. The second one, though, and this might be surprising as well. You don't have to know everything here, right? Because this might be to many advisors, maybe they've focused on a certain area and they're not as good in another area. The ones that I've seen the most successful, and Wayne can probably touch on this too, are the ones that aren't afraid to ask for help. Okay. And what I mean by that is like the point you asked me a question about in the charitable giving realm, right? I would never claim to be a total expert on everything charitable giving, but we have people that are, right? We have people that can help you with that. And so the ones I've found that are really successful are the ones that really are willing to kind of get this craft of asking questions, listening, paying attention, and then go get the help that they need and don't try to do everything themselves. And I think that's a place where, Kathy, obviously, in what you do, right, in your organization, I think that's a place you can help them as well.
Well, um, I had attended a presentation recently where the presenter acknowledged that unfortunately, most business owners or clients, they're not just approached by one advisor. They're approached by many advisors. And often we're trying to get into the door or make a difference where another advisor is already there, but we're trying to secure an account. And one of the things that I learned during that meeting was the advisor said one of the questions that they ask is, tell me something about your existing business or your plans or what you hope to accomplish that your existing advisor does not know.
Mm, mm.
And that one question seemed to have been a question that was very successful in getting the client to further think about what they're trying to do from a different angle and gives a new person uh, entering an opportunity a different perspective as opposed to just trying to reinvent the wheel. So sometimes it's really just about asking questions in a different way to try and elicit some additional information that can totally change the planning.
And you know what I love
Mark,
about that question too, Kathy, is that it really then builds on the idea of why the boss structure. I'm not saying you have to do it exactly this way, but why it's so important. Because sometimes if you ask a business owner that, they might not know what they don't know, right? I mean, some of them, believe it or not, may have not heard about, for example, a key person that they can insure the life of a key person. I'm just throwing things out there, right? But that's kind of interesting if you ask that question. And that's really, I think, where if you can go around this whole thing with them one time, that may be another way of kind of asking the same question, Kathy, which is, you know, you could ask it both ways in a positive or a negative. Which one of these has your existing advisor helped you with, and which one of these have they not talked to you about, right? Either way, you could make it a positive or a negative. But yeah, it's an interesting twist, and I think that's a great way to ask a question.
terrific. If anybody has any questions, we have now been on this webinar for about 30 minutes, and Mark said that he was going to talk for about 20, and then we were going to open it up. So if anybody has any questions regarding planning for heirs or whether it's any of the other topics that Mark has covered, we're happy to address them. Mark had mentioned the guaranteed issue for key executives. We are going to host that fifth webinar in this four-part series. So I think we've now made it a five-part series. That webinar is going to be on September 25th. So please mark your calendars. And Agency One will be getting invitations out for that webinar in the next probably 2 weeks. But I don't know if
Kathy,
any of our other
yeah, let me make a
panelists have
comment.
anything.
Yeah, one comment here, and I think it's really important now with the exemption being 15 million. A few years back, I took to lunch three estate planning attorneys here in Pittsburgh separately. Not so I had three separate lunches and asked them. We talked about a lot of things, but the one question that I asked was, when you're in a meeting with the client, yourself, the attorney, and the insurance advisor, what does the insurance advisor that gets the client to move ahead to purchase the recommended insurance, what do they say? What approach are they saying? And this goes back to what Mark said. What they talk about is estate distribution planning, maximizing what can go to the next generation. They're not honing in on, oh, buy the life insurance to pay the estate tax. That the one attorney said that's kind of a cold subject. I mean, they're upset that they have to pay the estate tax. Now they have to pay a premium to pay the estate tax, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're trying to maximize what goes to the next generation, if they care about their kids or grandkids, they're going to move ahead. And that could be maximizing through a better use of IRA money that's going to get crushed, at death, income tax. You don't even need estate taxes for that to be a good story, or a deferred annuity that's not being tapped in retirement. I mean, there's so many opportunities from buckets of money that these people have to leverage it with the life insurance. And I go back to the LIMRA study that asked people the question, is life insurance income taxable to the beneficiary? Is life insurance death benefit income taxable to the beneficiary? 40% said yes, it is income taxable. 30% said I have no idea. 30% said no, it's not. So 70% are not informed and that's the leverage. So I just hone in on that because I think it's an important fact. Like Mark said, they don't even know what they don't know. So
Thank you, Wayne.
that's
I
all I
do
got,
not,
Kath.
thank you. And that's a really good point, obviously, because as soon as they hear that it's not taxable, you get somebody's attention, right? And the conversation, takes on a whole different tone. I do not see any outstanding questions for any of our other panelists. I know that I'm being joined by my partner, Gonzalo. I don't know if Gonzalo, you have anything that I don't want to put you on the spot, if there's anything that you would like to add. Um, I know that you work very closely in this space, and we're obviously big believers in the B.O.S.S system. Otherwise, we would not have dedicated 5 out of 5 webinars to our friends at John Hancock presenting this opportunity. It works. And sometimes you just have to change a little bit about what's going on in your practice and embrace, a new module to speak to some clients a little differently and see if this will resonate. Gonzalo, I see
Yeah,
your hand.
look, thank you, Kathy, and thank you everybody for being on the call and Wayne and Mark for your participation here. But the business owner market is huge. It is grossly underserved. There's not, everybody's talking about insurance or long-term care, life insurance or long-term care or other, things, but the business owner market has some very unique characteristics and it just happens to be typically one of their largest assets. And, Mark addressed the issue of, not having buy-sell agreements or trying to exit a business as part of your retirement plan. These folks have needs that are fairly unique because they're entrepreneurs. They make quick decisions. They understand what they need to do. So it's a very healthy and viable market. And I'm just so grateful that we spent the time that we have, Mark, with you and Wayne on this. So thank you guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Gonzalo. Okay, so we don't have any questions. I'm going to give everybody back 20 minutes of their day. Again, on behalf of Agency One and our friends at Broker Service Marketing Group and Business Underwriters Associates, thank you to John Hancock, to Mark, and to Wayne Baldwin for your time, your knowledge, and your expertise, and for all the assist that you give both Agency One and our other partner companies with all of our underwriting and advanced markets questions. Once again, we've got another webinar on September 25th, part 5 of a 5-part B.O.S.S series. We hope that you will join us for that webinar as well. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything that anyone at Agency One can help you with during the remainder of the month of August or throughout the end of the year to help move the needle on your business, please let us know. We've got a lot of good opportunities that are pending. I can tell you that Wayne Baldwin will fight for every underwriting offer that is humanly possible. So please give us and him the opportunity to do so. And I firmly believe that if we can get Mark involved in 1, 2, 3, or 4 of your cases, you will have a better than expected result. So thank you for your time and your interest. And I hope everyone will join us again in September. Have a wonderful Labor Day holiday, and we'll see everyone in September. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.